This is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMA Junkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Coase, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly goes, our East co-host, back east, producing the show, Jumbo Josh. What up?
What's up?
Not much, man. Thursday, June 6th, getting close to UFC 238. On Saturday, we got fighters probably now starting to lower their water intake and dialing it down, turning off the phone, just sticking around with their nutritionists or strength and conditioning coaches or just their coaching staff in general, maybe a teammate or two, and that's it, because you got to get that weight off, and you got to do it in time for, like, usually it's like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. local. So they're in Chicago, so 8 to 10 a.m. Midwest tomorrow, that's when they'll be stepping on a scale in front of the commissioners there and making things official. Remember, there's two guys that have to get down to 135 pounds, Henry Cejudo and Marlon Moraes. Not 36. You don't get the 1 pound allowance because it's a title fight. They're fighting for the vacant bantamweight title. And then you got two young ladies that need to get down to 125 pounds. Valentina Shevchenko, she's defending her flyweight title versus Jessica Ai. And then the rest get a 1 pound allowance. But that's it, man. Once we get past that, fighters then go and take naps, rehydrate. Then they come back and do what's called the ceremonial weigh-ins, where Joe Rogan's head's about to explode as he's yelling for everybody to come out and step on the scale. If you notice, the
matchmakers have a casual walk.
Yeah, 2-3 years ago they started these earlier weigh-ins, and so they gain about 8 hours of rehydration, which is good for the fighters. But if you wonder why some of the fighters don't take all their clothes off, or they just stand on the scale and no one's really measuring or getting the balance right, that's the reason. And then right after that, not right after, 24 hours after that, boom, it's fight time. So I'm really, really pumped up, and I like some of the personality that's coming out of some of the fighters out there. Jessica Ai had a creative shirt that said bulletproof.
Okay, George.
And then Henry Cejudo is dressing up like with his version of Magic Man, I guess.
We'll get to Henry Cejudo.
Okay.
I thought, and this isn't because she was just here, that was one of the best costumes or whatever you want to call it. She didn't wear a shirt. She wore a bulletproof vest.
Oh, that's what it was?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know it was a vest.
Isn't that cool?
I just thought it was like a black T-shirt and it said bulletproof on it.
No.
She wore the vest.
Vest.
Oh.
That's unique.
That's very creative.
That
was brilliant.
it's not over the top where you're like really talking shit or anything like that. It's great. I'll give you another good one. Remember back in the day, I think Joe Lozon gave Rudiger a cake. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I really, really liked that one. I thought it was good. And I thought Valentina did a good job of matching the intensity. She was right there with that fist kind of crossing the line, but not really.
Right.
Didn't really move, didn't laugh, nothing. Dude, that got me pumped up for the fight. And then Henry Cejudo, he's crossed the line. He's crossed the line where it's so corny, it's starting to get really funny now to see what he's going to do next.
Right.
I'm down.
He's becoming a character, right? He's going from cringy to becoming a character.
I love it.
And I think that happened with a few other fighters. There was a lot of people that when Colby Covington started doing his stuff, they were like, oh, God, I wish he'd shut up. And I'm not saying all of them. There's still a lot of people that go, oh, man, I wish he'd shut up. There's a lot of people that are like, all right, I get it. That's just him acting a fool and saying what he does. But he doesn't stop. He's wearing the sunglasses. He's boarding private jets. He's sitting in jacuzzi with hot chicks, and that's just his thing. He takes the belt everywhere as well, a la Cejudo. So good on those guys, making themselves get noticed. So listen, we're going to talk a lot about what's going on there for Fight Week for UFC 238. They've had media days and face-offs and things like that. And then we got some really, really cool audio in relating to the People's Main Event, which features Tony Ferguson and Donald Cerrone. And I think there'll be a big focus on Ferguson, because Ferguson is just a guy that hasn't done a lot of media, for one. And two, this past spring, he had a really, really rough time of it outside the cage with his wife, getting a restraining order, and then it coming to light, that there wasn't really a domestic issue per se, other than her concern for Tony and some medical issues that he was some mental issues that he was having. And then, of course, as the spring wore on, Tony addressed them, and I guess he's been cleared to fight, and he's going to be fighting on Saturday. But we really haven't heard much from him, and so we now have a chance to get to some of that.
I'm
now,
happy that he's back, though, aren't you?
Me too.
Just to see his face out there, the intensity that he brings, the way he sells a fight.
Right.
And then
also cringy at times, though, but yes.
Yeah, right across from him, Donald Cerrone, where it's like, aren't those two guys where when they tell you they're on a card, you don't really want to know? Like, I mean, of course you want to know, but you don't really care who they're matched up against. You're just like, oh, okay, he's on the card. Great.
Right.
I'm down. You can't do that for every fighter on the card.
I agree. And then the fact that they're facing each other is awesome. All right, so listen, we have one guest today. Burt Watson will join us at 8:40 p.m. Eastern, 5:40 p.m. Pacific. The man that used to walk out a lot of these fighters to their big fights. He was the UFC site coordinator, and now he's a promoter. So we'll talk about his upcoming card a week from Saturday. It's on June 15th. We'll talk about that when we have him on the show. And then, of course, you can participate by calling in at 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893. I know there's some dumb people out there, so I'm going to clue you in on something right now. 877-FIGHT-93 is 877-344-4893. So just so you all know that, I just read it off twice in case some of you, Fight 93 is easy to remember, right? But if you're going to dial in, a lot of people are like, oh, what? The F is the 3, is it the, whatever. So I say it both ways. 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893. But come on, man. These smartphones make it so easy and dummy-proof that it should just be automatic for you to call in between 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern and chat some mixed martial arts. Or some boxing. Or some NHL. Or some basketball. We dabble in the other stuff. But the meat and potatoes is mixed martial arts on social media at MMA on SiriusXM. That works for our show and the other shows as well. So you can chat with the hosts and the producers. So funny goes.
You're saying there's dumb people out there, and I want to laugh at them, but I was dumb not too long ago.
You also know that you also didn't think that you thought those were two different numbers?
No, I knew that part.
Oh, okay.
But yesterday, for the first time, I realized that real OC.
You didn't know Dad's number?
OC stands for O'Connell.
Come on.
Yeah.
Really?
I always wondered, like, what does that mean? Is he originally from the
County?
OC or something?
You thought he was from Orange County?
Yeah.
Yeah, O'Connell. Real O'Connell Sports. And by the way, those fights have already started. I think it's within the realm of reason for us to stay away from spoilers, other than for us to just remind you. Right now, they're on ESPN2. So if you're listening on SiriusXM devices and speakers, you want to watch the fights on mute while you check out our show, fine, do that. They're on ESPN2 right now for the next hour. A couple fights have already come in. Light heavyweights and heavyweights, and then they switch over to ESPN2. All right, so let's hear from Tony Ferguson. We'll start off with Tony Ferguson commenting on Dana. Dana had stated, he might need to be evaluated. This is what Tony has to say about that.
I think he needs to be evaluated. We need to check his head, man. I don't know how many interim title fights he can try to make me fucking fight. So straight up, man. Literally, I did everything I needed to do to get back to where I'm at. Like I said, I'm happy to be here. This ain't no 30 for 30. It ain't, man. This ain't my time for that shit. I'm out running the 20-year-olds, and I'm out sprinting the other guys. And as long as I keep doing that shit, don't feel bad. Don't ask those dumb questions.
He had fun with it.
Yeah.
And he's right. There has been a lot of interim titles, and there's no consistency to the interim titles. So that's why it leaves us scratching our heads at times. There's a lot of them where you see them and you go, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I get it. And then there's others where you're like, what are you doing? That makes no sense.
They don't always match, right?
Right. And I've said this many times. If Dana would almost just say, listen, case by case. And I think those words have come out of his mouth before, but not often enough. This Dana will look you in the eye and go, why wouldn't we do it? Like, you're the moron. You know what I mean? So then you're forced to shuffle through your papers and go, well, because 6 months ago you didn't, but of course mainstream media doesn't check them on that. And hardcore media, the ones that are really, really in trenches, I think they're just focused on getting to the next question and knowing that it's going to go nowhere. Because it's really not about you to argue with him, I guess. I mean, there's a time to like challenge and have a follow up or whatever, but to get in a pissing match, we've seen how that goes, and in the end, whatever. I mean, as long as I guess you get him to answer and have some quote out there, you know.
I'd even take him going, I like money. I would even take that answer.
Yeah.
I would even take if he went and then just walked out like a villain. I'd even take that over. What are you, a moron? You don't get why I do this?
You kind of reminded me of Newman there.
Man, why'd I have to
He
be
does
Newman?
a little bit of that. Then he leaves the room.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. How he does that thing with
He
his
does
fingers.
things. Yeah, exactly. All right, so now listen. Let's continue with Ferguson. Again, this guy has not done much media. And look, I know I say the word cringy, but there's a lot of entertainment to this guy. And a lot of things have happened, man, not just with his family. He's got a new management team. He's got, this fight coming up where I imagine he thinks that he gets the winner of Poirier and Khabib, but you've seen how that's happened, and it's a mess. So let's just go in order here. This is Ferguson Cut 1, going back to UFC 229, the last win that he had.
It was more like it was like a war cry. It was more than anything else. It was more of a sigh of laughter, a sigh of relief, and a sigh of just mixed emotions all into one. I mean, Eddie went down and grabbed my feet, and I'm like, basically, I want to tell everybody, get the away from me. Let me enjoy my moment for a second, because nobody battled with, there was a select few that went through what I had to go through, my wife especially, dealing with the surgery, coming back, and barely having any support system. It took my belt, took a bunch of zeros from my paycheck. Literally, I do this not just for the paycheck, I do this for something else. So I have a lot of people to look up to me to actually keep going on, and it's really nice to be able to have that energy transferred over.
I've seen this from many fighters when they come back from a serious injury where you think that may derail your career or finish your career. They come back and they get a win, and they're overcome with emotions. I think of Anderson Silva coming back from the broken leg against Nick Diaz. I think it shows up as a no contest right now, but either way, that night he won, and he succumbed to his knees.
Well, think about how many guys had to retire from, actually, the newer generation doesn't realize there's certain injuries that today are like, all right, you're out 6-9 months. But not too long ago, that was it. They didn't have, the detached retina. That's what put Sugar Ray away. Now, granted, Sugar Ray was at the end. But now you get a detached retina, and they're like, all right, we got to shelf you for about 9 months, have this type of surgery, you're good. Tommy John surgeries, those haven't been around that long, right? You would get something like that, your career's done.
Yeah. Yeah, he came back in 5 months, which was pretty amazing, and he fought well. Look, of course Pettis had some moments too, don't get me wrong. But Ferguson he fought really well for somebody coming off an ACL injury, and then the whole gravity of by the time he came back, there was someone else that was the champion, someone who he was supposed to fight, and that person was involved in the biggest payday. If that was Tony Ferguson, that would have been Tony Ferguson sharing the $2.5 million pay-per-view with Conor McGregor. If the roles were somehow reversed.
Are you surprised that the UFC let him come out with the belt? I am a little bit.
I think they let the guys do and say what they want. They don't really tell them not to.
Only because it's kind of confusing, right? If you're a casual fan and you're going, oh, wait a minute, he's walking out with the belt. Is he the champion? And you go, nah, well, he was the interim. And it seems like it would create confusion. I think normally maybe the UFC might have said something like, hey, this is a little bit too much. Just keep that belt out. But I think because of what Tony's been through and all that, I think they just said,
well, whoever's confused is confused and can figure it out. I think the UFC just lets they want to let the fighters express themselves however they want to.
Like you and I, we're here in the sports book, and they'll show them doing that, the face-off with no volume. You look up and you go, oh, is there a championship fight? What's going on? Like, it can be kind of confusing. If you have Colby Covington walk out with his belt, I think a casual fan could get confused. So if it were me, I'd probably say, hey, guys, look, just, all right, we get it, but leave the belt at home.
But see,
I was a little surprised
the
they let him do
UFC
that.
wants them to see a belt, and they don't care if they're confused.
They're trying to trick you?
Well, they don't even care if they got tricked. They just want that. That's flashy, and if they want to come out, then do it. Mm-hmm. If that's how the fighter wants to express themselves, the UFC could care less if you buy it and then realize, wait a minute, he's not the champ. And by then, you've already bought it, and they don't concern with themselves with that.
What I wish they would do more, some fighters do it, but when you're walking out as a champ, I kind of like it in boxing when the guys are behind him holding the belt up in the air. And not everybody does that in MMA.
I do too, yeah. All right. He keeps going here. This is cut number 2. This is Balancing Fighting with outside aspects of his life.
I don't campaign. I'm not in politics. There's two things that we didn't allow in my bio: was religion and politics. We left that outside of there. Same thing with fighting. And things that I don't like to think about, but obviously they happen. You know, you have tiramisu and you have McNuggets. These guys have no balls. The only person that won a sign on dotted line was Cowboy, and here we are, UFC 238. We're getting ready for this fight. A lot of people want to reflect back on the past, but I'm one of those guys that gives one day. You bounce back from a loss. You give yourself one day, you dust yourself off, you get your ass back in the game, and you play it again. You learn from your mistakes and you move forward. And a lot of the people that dwell on a lot of that past, they never get to grow up. I stay young at heart, and that's what keeps me moving forward.
That's fine. I understand that. I think there's a lot of people that only look back on the past just as a reminder to learn from your mistakes. Or if you get asked about it, maybe some people just see it as rude to not answer the question, because sometimes those questions are relevant. So we have a lot of these, and it's pretty cool to hear from Tony. Again, we just haven't heard much from him, and he addresses a lot of the stuff that happened in these past 6 months. But in the meantime, we're going to pay some bills. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156. When we come back, we'll keep playing some of these Tony Ferguson audio cuts. Five of the Stanley Cup final between the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins, as the series is tied at 2 games apiece. The Boston call is on Sirius 108 XM 219. The St. Louis call is on Sirius 119 and XM 220. The national feed is on NHL Network Radio Channel 91, and it's all streaming on your phone and at home on SiriusXM connected devices and speakers. Get that Yelp out, goes, and Yelp 1 star for Josh on that rejoin.
Dude, I don't want no part of Josh.
A little bit of a train
I'm
collision
not laughing
there.
at jokes or nothing. I just saw one review. and it's a long one for being a 1-star. Like, he really takes it serious.
All right. We'll catch up
I'd
on
give
that.
myself 1 star on that. That was trash. I agree.
All right, we'll catch up on that in just a bit. Let's get to a few more of these Tony Ferguson cuts. This one's going to be interesting, and I have a little bit of insight on this. This is Tony Ferguson. We're going to skip to cut number 4, why he chose to switch agencies. Remember, I said in the spring a lot of things changes in his life, personally and professionally, and one of them is he's got a new management team. He's no longer with Paradigm MMA, led by Adi Attar, and, of course, their big client being Conor McGregor. He switched, and he talks about that right here.
I knew 4 years ago that I should have left them. I mean, I'm talking about bad blood, but there was a couple things that happened. I saw my sponsors go to some other people that weren't as deserving when I really needed the help. I felt like it was pulling teeth. I feel like, even the little smallest details make the biggest difference, like making T-shirts and getting merchandise out to my fans. That was like pulling arms. I mean, it was like I don't want to say it was like hell, but it was like I wasn't being taken care of seriously. I know that they're my older brothers in football, but I need to give somebody else an at-bat, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I made the switch.
Why do you think that happened at Paradigm?
I don't know. You ask them, man. This isn't 30 for 30. We're on to newer, bigger, better things. This is a fresh start. I just got a fresh fade today, so I'm feeling good. You want to get into that? I mean, these guys, look at, man, when I leave companies and I leave this kind of thing, they don't have that same luster anymore. When I go to new places and I go to new different things, people have that new energy around them. They feel that glow, they feel that, and they love it, they absorb it, and they learn from it, and they grow from it, just like my plants. If they don't, then, it's cool. I mean, I'm not here to please everybody. I'm not a fan favorite for everybody. But all my stuff's organic. I don't try to be fake. I don't try to be something that I'm not. I'm here, I'm real, I like to build. And if I don't like it, I tear it down, I redo it again. I'm an artist, man. That's what I do.
Man, he sure doesn't like that 30 for 30 format, does he?
Well, yeah, the one more, and I think we're going to have to joke around that's kind of his go-to, a little bit. It's pretty funny, though. I have giggled 2 times now when he has said it. And he has said it looks like in 2 different forums. That sounds like he was maybe one-on-one with Burt Okamoto from ESPN. Mm-hmm. So here's the deal. He was with Paradigm for a while, and I think the new group's name is Balanji. Hopefully I'm not butchering them. But they've popped up now, and I think they're with Jimmy Rivera and Aljamain Sterling and a few others. Balanji, maybe. Eddie Alvarez, I think, might be another name. Okay. So one rumor that was out there years ago was that Conor McGregor was maybe a minority owner in Paradigm. And I've heard it enough times now out in public that's just a rumor that has been out there, So it could be that maybe there is some truth to that. Now, that would be something for Adi to confirm, or Conor. And the same goes with Jones and the Kawas, I should say. Mm-hmm. Same thing. And so Conor has tweeted. Have you never noticed when Conor says, "Hey, welcome to Paradigm. We'll take you." He's kind of had an open invitation, or he's told others, "Great job. You're a part of the company," but he's talking to somebody like he's their boss or their rep or something like that. So that's why I say it's kind of like one of the worst kept secrets out there, but it's just something I guess has never really been substantiated. And I think after a while, a lot of the fighters, especially the ones that occupy the same division, were probably at some point going to say enough. Like, how can this guy probably not get most of the favoritism while he's an active fighter? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's because they're booing the national anthem?
Yeah, that was bizarre. That sucked.
Well, I mean,
wait, maybe Blues, St. Louis Blues. Is the game in St. Louis?
Okay. No, it's in Boston.
Oh, okay. Bruins, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, that sucked, though. We don't want to hear any booing of the national anthem.
I guess the thing about Conor's personality is he's so brash. He's almost like a pro wrestling manager sometimes when he's not fighting. That things he says, I could see how you could see it as like, welcome to my team.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But he has this like swag to him that it almost, I feel like he feels like he needs to say something about everything to let people know, like, this is my home. You're walking into my house. You can stay here, but know that it's my house, that type of thing. So it's hard to tell what exactly he's trying to say.
Yeah. Now, granted, for 4 years he put up with it, but maybe enough things happened that he just wanted to part ways. Now, the one thing I would disagree with is, something about they're not going to be the same since he left or something. Look, man, with all due respect, Paradigm's got NFL players. They got, some other major sports stars. And they got a solid roster of MMA fighters. So, yeah, it sucked to lose Tony Ferguson, of course. He was a champion at one point. And I believe he could be very, very marketable. He's a local guy as well. He only lives like 10 minutes from their office in Irvine, California. But I'm pretty sure Paradigm will be all right. Okay. Here's him talking. We'll just keep with the same topic. Ferguson, number 5, please. Him moving to a different agency. And he asks them. He talks a little bit about why Ferguson versus McGregor hasn't happened. The guys had like 14 fights in the UFC, but none of them been in against McGregor, and they've been at the top of the game for a while.
When I asked them, I said straight up, I was like, look, I want Conor next. They basically told me, like, no. They were like, no. They're defending him the same way Dana's defending him. I mean, any person that's got their hands in Conor's pockets right there, I mean, they're kissing their ass. I'm not going to say anything else about that, but literally, man, the kid don't run the show. He don't run me, man. But you never heard this dude speak my name. You never heard this dude talk about me. You never heard him do anything like that. That's a little bit of respect. I see that, He's got a lot of people they got that for him. For myself, and you got Khabib, same way. None of these dudes over there, they want a piece of me inside that octagon because, like I said before, you ain't out your homeboys. I don't run with the big crowd. I have a huge crowd, but I don't need them right there and holding my hand. A lot of these other fighters, they want to go, they want to make the mistakes, they want to create a crowd, they want to do some goofy act. Let them. It's not for me. I got a 3-year-old, man. I got a 3-year-old that's looking for me to be the super dad. And what better else can I do besides throwing Superman punches off the cage?
I like his passion, but Khabib has signed on the dotted line to do this before. I don't think he's afraid of him. I'm sure there's a lot of people, though. Dan Tom says this a lot, too, and I agree. He's a bad matchup for a lot of people. He kind of just walks in there, and he's the smartest guy that doesn't care, if that makes any sense to you. He doesn't have those tendencies that other fighters have where you could kind of see their nerves. Like, he never has it. He takes the fight to everyone, and I think that's just awkward for people. I mean, I could see why people don't want to fight him. But to say Khabib doesn't want to fight him, I mean, he's tried to fight him before.
Yeah. That's where I feel like sometimes they just go a little too far, but only the hardcore MMA fans and media catch that. The casual fan eats it up. All right, 2 more things that are relevant here. Well, then why go there, Tony? Let's go to Ferguson 7. Why go there? If Conor was already there, but he'll give you a timeline of how that worked out and how they weren't really in the same division at the time.
I was pretty damn sure that he was going to stay at 45, and apparently he runs the show over at Paradigm. So I'm not going to talk bad about Paradigm, you know what I mean? Like Saya and Adi, those guys, I'll say Saya's been there. I could do it without Adi, and Adi went to the other one. Saya's awesome, he's a sweetheart, he's cool. But I have some people that are looking after me now, and there's a bunch of them. The hard part is allowing people to be close to me. I don't let anybody close to me, because once I did, as soon as I got out of the Ultimate Fighter, everybody shit on me. I saw different promotions, different like things like Fox. I've seen Spike. I've seen the changes go from ESPN. I've seen them all, man. I've seen the trophies even change. I've had the old school trophies, and then they changed to the new ones.
So Saya is, I don't want to butcher his last name, but it's something like Mutafalka or something like that. He's a Islander, obviously, and him and Adi have been part of a Paradigm for years. Very, very cool dude. I believe he actually was a Santa Ana kid as well. And so he kind of handled a few of the guys, and that was who Tony was basically a little bit more with Saya. And Saya, I think, also played football with Adi at UCLA. So anyway, that's why he's not throwing any shade at Paradigm. He's just kind of leaving it alone. I guess he's saying a few things, but I'm glad that he was able to stay cool with Saya. Saya seems to be one of the cooler guys I've met, man, in a long time on that level of the managers. So yeah, Conor was a featherweight at the time, and I guess he really didn't think that they would.
Makes sense.
Well,
that they would
maybe
fight,
cross paths, or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe everybody thought Jose Aldo was just going to check everyone, and we wouldn't have to worry about all these up and comers or whatever, because he was ruling the division, and Tony was a lightweight. But all right, he mentioned his son, his 3-year-old son, and guess what? The son and the wife are there to support. They're there in Chicago. However, the son's not going to watch the fight. He addresses this in cut number 6.
Speaking of your 3-year-old, I saw him on your Instagram. He's here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he'll be at the fight?
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't have him front and center. This isn't for little kids. I'll be real with you. This is a different kind of bloodshed sport, especially when I get in there. You have a fighter like Cerrone who's very dangerous. You have a fighter like myself who likes to use all 8 limbs. It's a certain commodity I've made in a certain kind of I don't want to put an anecdote, but it's something that I put in my head that a kid shouldn't be at the fight front and center. This isn't a circus. You think it is, man? Wait until you get blood on the back of your shirt like John Anik did, man. How are you gonna explain that to your kid? Think that's cool? He's gonna go to school. What's he gonna do? I didn't get raised like that. No, I got raised for interscholastic sports. Play football, baseball, wrestling. You make the grade, you get to play. And if you don't, you better sit your ass down, boy.
I kind of agree with him
So
on
do
that
I.
one.
So do I.
I don't know what that sweet spot is. I think it just comes down to the way you raise your kid. But I would know this, that if I were a fighter at the level of Tony Ferguson, I know my kid eventually would want to have said he experienced that, going out there and watching his dad fight. And to be honest, I would want him to see me win and lose. But the losses can be pretty brutal, and sometimes the wins can be pretty brutal. We saw Max Holloway's son.
I was just gonna say
the way he reacted.
The kid loves it when he wins, but when he doesn't, it breaks his little heart. And so,
But it's a
I
good
could
life
see
lesson
pros and
too.
cons to both. But I think he's obviously older and 3 years old. Hell, at 3 years old, there might be some stuff that he won't be able to soak in. You know,
I think like 5th grade, 6th grade. I think that's where I would say, okay, let's do this.
It all depends on the kid, man. Hey, he mentioned Khabib a few times here, and wanted to ask you, are you going to get sick of that if Tony Ferguson wins, of even the possibility of Ferguson and Khabib, should Khabib also beat Dustin Poirier? Are you one of those where like, hey, we tried 4 times? Or do you just say that's life, and if they're the best 2, I want to see the best 2?
That's life. If they're the best 2, I want to see the best 2. I am one of those guys, though, that'll sit back and go, man, this thing's jinxed, or stop already with it. But they've made it where it's almost unavoidable. I mean, you have to do it. And as a promotion, you just can't sit back and say, well, we're not going to have them fight because that fight is jinxed. That just doesn't make sense. So I know Dana said he'd never, ever do it again, but it's unavoidable. They really made it so that it's unavoidable. So, all right, let's do it.
Khabib is 10-0 as a UFC lightweight. He's 27-0 as an MMA fighter. Tony Ferguson is 24-3 as an MMA fighter. And as a UFC lightweight, I'm tired of butchering it, so let me just count it. 1, 2, 3. Well, I know he's won 11 in a row. And then he's 14-1, dude. 14-1 as a lightweight.
Easy.
The other guy's 10-0. They have to collide if they win. They just have to. It would make no sense for it to not happen, other than the fact that there's just one other fight that makes way more money. And I understand that the UFC is not shy about just going in that direction, but that still doesn't mean that, let's just say Conor somehow intervened and had to fight Khabib, that Tony couldn't just sit and wait for the winner of that fight.
But
which we all believe would be Khabib again.
The more time that goes by, though, the more ridiculous it sounds, doesn't it?
It does. It
Conor
does.
just skating in there like that.
It does, but I guess I'm tired of pretending that I can't figure out why that.
Well, what's
that
the
happens.
selling point? What would you do if you were the UFC? How would you sell Conor McGregor as being next?
So you're mainstream media, and you're telling me you got Tony Ferguson 14-1.
He just won.
And Khabib, we'll say he beat Poirier.
Yeah.
Why are you Dana? Why I'm Dana White?
Yeah. What
This
could you
fight sold
possibly say?
$2.5 million. Everyone wants to see this fight. I got everyone blowing up my phone. They want to see this fight over any other fight out there. It'd be stupid not to make the fight.
Schmo me the money.
Believe it or not.
So then it's up to the casual media guy to go, no, it'd be stupid not
When
to
you
have the guy
gotta
that's 10-0 facing
put
the
out
guy
the
that's
facts.
Right, exactly, and hit them back. But most of them don't move on. They just kind of go, Dana White, folks.
But what you just said really wasn't the end of the world. I kind of get it, but now going forward, I think I would just need you to say, all right, man, you're You're a bad guy. You're the bandito. You might as well be twirling your mustache every event. And we know going forward that's the way things are.
Yeah, and then he
Don't
dresses
try
it
and
up by
sell me
saying
on shit later on.
And then sometimes he'll dress it up and go, look, I know Tony Ferguson's a badass, and we're going to get him in there. He will get the winner. But we're making this fight, blah, blah. It's set. It's done. It's going to break all the records. And I know you want to see it. And he points to the other guy, and the guy's like, you're right, Dada. I do want to see it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then that's it. That's the end of the segment. Right. And that's the end of this segment because we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we'll talk to Burt Watson. But we'll circle back. We still got more Tony Ferguson cuts. And, of course, there's lots of fights to cover. Lots of cool face-offs out in Chicago. It's all on MMA Junkie as well. So check it out. And we'll be right back on Fight Nation Channel 156.
And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
On June 15th, Burt Watson Promotions has a card down in Hollywood, Florida. We're going to talk all about that with Burt Watson, former UFC site coordinator and now a promoter. That's right. That's the Burt Watson. He joins us now on the hotline. What's up, Burt? How you doing?
What's up, baby? You know I'm trying to make it. How's everything going?
Going great. How about you? You're like, 10 days away or so from promoting MMA Live down at the Hard Rock Casino.
Less than that, man. It's next Saturday, and I'm like I do with all fights. I'm getting excited. I'm pumped. I'm ready to roll, and it's been exciting, man. I mean, kind of taking on all these roles and pulling all these things together, which is stuff that I normally do anyway. But then it just seemed to get a little bigger, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm truly excited to be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. And during the course and in the process of doing this, you know, we've had some great things happen to us and some great things coming along. We just recently partnered with who is now our presenting sponsor, Elite Fantasy, which I'm truly excited about the partnership with them, you know, because they're one of the industry's leaders in sports information and daily sports fantasy. Elite Fantasy, that's our presenting sponsor. And, you know, when you partner with good sponsorship, it gives you the leverage to do bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always said that when you promote these things, there's three things you got to have in place. One is that you got to have a venue, which we've got in the Hard Rock Hotel. You've got to have some sort of television or production, and we will be live streaming our weigh-in and our event on Digital Research Media. We will be live streaming it on Facebook. And three is having your sponsors, and just really bringing that aboard, you know, with our friend and your friend Mike Constantino, who kind of put that thing together for me and brought in Elite Fantasy. And man, it's all coming together. Aside from the fact that we've got a great card and a ton of regional guys, and I believe in entertainment, presentation, and putting on an event and giving these guys a platform to fight on and giving them a platform in their area. And, you know, I'm excited about it, baby.
All right. Well, big shout out to Mike Constantino. We've known him for about a dozen years. Solid guy. And as far as EliteFantasy.com, definitely heard of them. I know they got the podcast No Mercy, as well as a radio show, actually on SiriusXM as well, Channel 87, folks. You want to check it out between 2 and 4 p.m.
Baby.
You know it, baby. All right.
I'm telling you, man. I'm excited, and being here with you guys, I'm telling you, man, that's the icing on the cake for me.
Isn't it?
We rolling MMA. Number one is what I've noticed, Burt. For one, you got the headline bout there. It's a bantamweight bout between Alberto Blas versus Gising Dujour. But as I was scanning the card, I noticed a lot of the lighter weights are on display, and you even have a jiu-jitsu match as well. So really interesting card that you put together. But was that by design that you wanted to focus a little bit on certain weight classes, a couple of lower weight classes, or tell us a little bit about that?
You know what? It was a little bit. One thing I believe in is that when you have a coordinator or a good coordinator, somebody that handles the operation, you give them what they need and let them do their job. And I also believe that you do the same with your matchmaker. And I've got a matchmaker from that area, Antonio Santiago. Notice how I'm dropping these names, baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who did our fight in last year in March. And I gave it to him. I gave it to him and told him, listen, you know what we like, you know what I like, and it's my first promotion, and you know we got to put that best foot out there, and we got to put together a great card with some great fights. And you know what? For him, it was the concept of putting together something that he's very familiar with. He's very well connected. He knows all these fighters in that area. And when he came to me, you know, about that jiu-jitsu match, which honestly, it was the first time I've ever heard of it. And what I'm understanding, Enrico Coco is a pretty bad boy, you know, and it's 1 10-minute round, and he's fighting Danny Chavez, and Danny Chavez is pretty bad. So he put that together, and then on our main event, you know, I got Jose No Way Coceres.
Yeah, I butchered that. I noticed that. I went with the wrong main event. We have No Way Jose Coceres versus Mike Lilly. Apologies for that. Welterweights there in the main event.
Correct. And Jose Coceres is the brother of Alex
Bruce Leroy.
Coceres.
Yeah.
Yes, Bruce Leroy. You know, and a guy that's been around and been around the sport and is very good in his own rights. You know, has a record of about 14-8. So he's been pretty active. And Mike Lilly, you know, this guy has an outstanding ground game and pretty good stand up. You know, and I mean, this guy looks like a Greek god with that build of his and all that long hair and that man bun sitting on top. You know, looking real good and ready to fight, man. So this card was put together by my matchmaker, and I think he's done a great job. And he's stuck with a lot of the local talent. And I actually went out and met everybody, one-on-one, face-to-face, you know, to kind of put tickets out on the street because I got to sell them tickets, baby. And that's been kind of the one thing that's kind of kept me awake during the course of all this is that we have a great event. But when I went out and I met these guys, they were genuinely excited, man, to be on my card and genuinely excited to fight. And that motivated me, man. It made me excited. And it makes all of this worthwhile.
That's because you a legend, baby. That's why they're excited to fight for you. So the right man at the right time there, Burt Watson Promotions. We have a June 15th card called We Rollin' #1. Goes, what do you have for Burt Watson?
Burt, when we initially talked to you about all this, you had mentioned that you want to be able to springboard this new talent up into the next phase of their lives, get them prepared. Can you maybe give an example of a fighter that you would want your fighters to aspire to be like?
Well, you know, what I did learn is that anybody that makes it to the level, to what they call the ultimate level, being the UFC, Bellator, PFL, whatever the case may be, those guys work hard for it. And once I got into their careers, I see that some of these guys started this at the age of 9 and 10. And I see that you know, they've worked hard to get there. And I've always told these guys, you know what? It's easy to get there, but it's harder to stay there than it is to get there. And I see what these guys put into it, and I see how they aspire to get there. And, you know, when they get there, the biggest hurdle that they have is all them lights that come on. And the moment that they're in, and the fact that it's television and it's at a high level. So I always try to prepare these guys for that, because sometimes the lights go on, these lights go out.
But
and I never wanted that to happen to a guy, so I always try to prepare them for that level.
Who's a good example, though, Burt? Pick a fighter where you could go, I would like you guys to eventually, this is a good example of a guy that did it right.
Anderson Silva.
That's a hell of a name. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Anderson Silva. Matt Hughes did it right. I think Tito Ortiz did it right. You know, Chael Sonnen, Vanderlei Silva did it right, because these guys sustained and withstood the test of time. Rampage, you know, and I hate to start naming names because I start missing names, and I've gotten so many calls over the past couple of weeks from some of the guys that have been reading some of my tweets out there, and they have, you know, been calling me and congratulating. And I've learned, Goes, over my career, that when you withstand the test of time and you make it through from era to era, because every time these guys come in, there's a flow of young talent that is coming in there to knock you off. And when you get beyond that point and withstand that, and you're still at a high level, that's what I want. And those are the guys that I want others to aspire to be.
Did you ever have any thoughts about this, even back in the UFC days, being part of the production and seeing how sometimes it can be a nightmare to promote? Did you ever even think back then, like, one day I'm going to do this?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. It's like history. You know, history has a way of making you a part of it without you even asking for it. I'm at a point in my career where I've done, within boxing and MMA, I've done everything. I did box a little bit. You know, I boxed Golden Gloves in college, but I never did MMA and actually fought. So I did everything within the sport but promote. And, you know, it's just that I had a relationship with the Hard Rock. I had a relationship with some other good guys around me. And somehow the time and the situation, I got a date out of nowhere. And the circumstances around me dictated what my next move was. Because, quite frankly, at my age, which is I'm still a young man.
Of course.
You know, the next step is to kind of sit back and watch everybody else do it. But it just happened to fall in my lap, and I had to pick it up. And you know, no way did I ever intend on possibly promoting, because at a competitive level, sometimes promoters, you know, when you get to that point, you become a promoter, you come off the fence. And I've always tried to stay on the fence, never go to the left or the right. Then when you become a promoter, sometimes you got to go to the left, and sometimes you got to go to the right. So that was never my goal to do that. But the circumstances around me were just presented itself, and when that date was there, I said to the guy, you know what, I'll do it. Now I'm looking forward to the next.
Here we are on Father's Day weekend, June 15th, down at the Hard Rock Hotel, is in South Florida, in Hollywood, Florida. We got We Rollin' #1, headlined by Coceres versus Lilly. And folks, let me tell you how you can get tickets. You go to Ticketmaster.com, type in MMA Live. You'll see that tickets are available, and you'll see that every single one of these tickets are very, very close to the cage. They got like 12, 13 fights lined up for you, and a jiu-jitsu match in some very, very high-paced weight classes, bantamweight all the way up to welterweight. So there you have it. I think that's a perfect Father's Day gift for anybody that's listening. And how about this? Also, go to EliteFantasy.com, and you'll get a link there for 10% off of your total ticket purchase, as well as you can sign up for a VIP giveaway contest where you can win an all-access pass for you and a lucky guest. You can go backstage with Burt Watson and the fighters, walk from locker room to locker room, meet some of the fighters, and you get some awesome seats. Again, that's EliteFantasy.com, and we're talking about the card coming up here a week from this Saturday.
MMA Live, baby.
Yep, June 15th. Good stuff here, Burt. We're excited, my man.
You know what? When I saw that it was that I looked at what date was available, and I saw that the day before Father's Day was available, and I just, you know, I figured that was it. That was the date. But then also that was a clear date for that no one else, they had no other big shows going on and so forth. So that just, like I said, the circumstances around me all fell in place. And, you know, I'm looking forward to a great show. The Hard Rock Hotel, MMA Live, you know, and fighters have tickets, Ticketmaster, Elite Fantasy. You know, hey, if you don't know where you need to be that night, you ain't rolling for real.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to show out and support. You put together a great card, and we can't wait to check it out. Thanks, Burt, for the time, man. It was great to catch up with you. Hopefully maybe Coceres and or Lilly can join us next week as well so they can talk about that main event. But thank you very much for your time this evening.
We're going to try to do that, but thank you guys so much for your support, you know, and just thank you. I appreciate it, and you know what? You know you're going to hear it, baby. You know you're going to hear it. We rolling! Yeah!
There you have it, folks.
All night long.
That's Burt Watson. Follow him on Twitter at Burt Watson for real. Thanks, Burt. Always great to hear from you. All right, folks. We are going to go to the top of the hour break here in just a couple of seconds. And when we come back, we'll have the whole next hour to talk about UFC 238, and yeah, maybe even chime in a little bit on PFL. So cover your ears. We won't be able to touch the main card just yet because they're just actually kicking off there on ESPN Plus. But maybe we'll talk a little bit about some of the prelims that have already gone down. They got light heavyweights and heavyweights. So switch over from ESPN2 to ESPN Plus. And then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about UFC 238 and everything that's going down in Chicago. 21 ranked fighters are fighting this weekend. And don't forget, on Saturday, Goz and I will be back on the Sportscaster. Sportscaster.com/MMA Junkie. You'll get to see me and Goz and our mugs for like 2-3 hours as we watch along with you UFC 238. We got a chat room and a prize to give away and everything. It's a lot of fun. We'll be right back, folks. All right, let's talk a little bit about UFC 238. We've had them, the fighters have been out there doing their rounds of media, Fight Week media, we call it. And they did some interesting face-offs. If you are up to date on the embeddeds, you know, they're usually like 24 hours behind. But like I say, today's Thursday, and tomorrow morning they'll be weighing in within about 12 hours. So all they got to do is take off the weight, sleep, wake up, weigh in, and it's all official. Then there's the ceremonial weigh-ins later on that evening in Chicago, and then on Saturday they fight. But let's talk a little bit about these fights, Goz. Start off right at the top. Marlon Moraes and Henry Cejudo, they're stepping in. Why, George? All right, let me just bring you up to speed here. TJ Dillashaw was the undisputed champion for the UFC in the bantamweight division, but he got flagged for doping violation in the spring of this year, and he pretty much got ahead of it and just relinquished the belt. There was no appeal or nothing like that, a dragged out process. He went very public about it and has already apologized, EPO to be exact. So that title's vacant, and what they did was they grabbed Marlon Moraes, who had pretty much solidified himself as the #1 contender by beating guys like Aljamain Sterling, Jimmy Rivera, and Rafael Assunção. And Henry Cejudo, the flyweight champion, what we hear is that he took on TJ Dillashaw at 125 pounds for his belt and won. That's the fight that TJ Dillashaw got caught for. But in the negotiations or in the process of accepting the fight, he said, well, we need to run it back at your weight class. I want a chance to be a champ. Remember, this is the champ era these last 3 years or so. And so that's why he's here. And that's your main event for Saturday. You got a vacant title, the bantamweight title, and you got the #1 contender in that division versus the flyweight champion. At times it didn't make sense, but I'm into it, Goz. I'm into it. I mean, Henry Cejudo has really turned a corner for me. Again, I think I used to use the word cringy, and at times he still can be. I just consider him a character now, and characters entertain me. Mm-hmm. He's out there. He's always got, you know, either the gold medal is being spoken about or he's rocking it, or
he threw out the first pitch with the belt on.
Yeah, I mean, he loves the belt. From time to time, he lets his boy Kelvin Gastelum use it. And now he comes out in kind of like a magician outfit for the weigh-in. He's throwing things. I think there was a rubber snake in there and a rabbit. And you could tell that Moraes maybe wasn't digging it too much, but then by the end he was smiling. But Henry wasn't smiling. So Henry has this ability to be a character and be lively. But, man, he's focused. And you can never question does he got high-level focus? Yes, he's a world champion. He's a gold medalist in the Olympics. He can turn it on when he's got to turn it on. That's your main event on Saturday, folks. And it's pretty much a dead-even fight here. I got the latest odds. Minus 125 for Moraes, minus 105 for Cejudo.
I think Henry has to do that stuff because Marlon hasn't really shown that he's that type of individual to get flustered by things like that. He's WSOF champion. But Henry's been there in the big fights at the UFC level and in the Olympics. Marlon is yet to have that championship fight. So I would try and do anything I can to get under his skin. And it looks like he did kind of get under his skin a little bit. It's not that bad. He's just dressed up as a magician. He threw out a rabbit, right? That shouldn't really bother anyone. If I'm Marlon, I'd probably laugh at that. But it seemed to bother him. And
well, to be fair also, these guys have been kind of trading barbs for a while now.
Yeah.
But
nothing seemed personal.
They're cutting weight, and there's times where I've seen fighters just be way over the top grouchy when they don't need to be. But because they're cutting weight, you're like, it's fight week. I get it. There's just the light switch up above, is thinking other things.
If you look at Dana White's face in the background, he looks like he's like, oh my God, enough with this dude already. What I don't understand is when you watch the embeddeds and all that, like, why aren't people promoting the fact that he could very well be on pace to being the best combat athlete of all time? A gold medal in the Olympics in wrestling and a UFC title, possibly two, in two different divisions.
To get that validation over to the mainstream audience, he needs to get it from people like Daniel Cormier and others saying it, not just us, not just fans, not just John Anik. It's other champions bringing the light just how difficult that is.
I disagree. He's Conor McGregor.
He's just not a big dude. He's not a big dude, and he's a corny dude. He's a character. He's cringy, whatever words we're saying. And so when you look at him, the first thing you go is, that fool? Remember Chuck Zito's reaction? We will leave the name out, but Chuck, when you pointed out to Chuck Zito that was, he goes, that pipsqueak, when he couldn't believe that, so-and-so was a tough guy. Same thing. I think you just go him. Like, you're expecting this intimidating, larger-than-life presence or somebody that just got that look. And Henry really doesn't have that look. I mean, his hair is kind of like a guy that would work at Wall Street would have his hair. There's not like this mohawk. There's no mohawk, or there's no like tattoos, tough guy tattoos, or there's just nothing to that. You talk to him, and pretty soon he's like, like the laughter comes out of him or whatever. So there's just not this believability of like that guy's got the statistics to be the baddest combat sports athlete ever. You're not sold on it. And to be fair, prior to beating DJ and prior to beating TJ Dillashaw, which was all literally in the last 6 to 9 months, he also kind of had a few losses too. So it's not like he's been on top for too long. It also has to play out for a couple of years. But he didn't come in being a mixed martial artist either. It's like he was kind of learning on the job. That's what I think makes it so impressive. They sold us on Conor McGregor. He's a great fighter. But are we really going to throw him up on a Mount Rushmore at some point? He's never defended his belt. Okay? But they sold us on him. McGregor had a big mouth. He had enough of those highlights of the tough
this dude's
guy
trying.
Act.
He's trying, but they're not really doing anything on it. You know one thing they did that really hurt that I thought was just dumb in the beginning? I thought it was cool that he would wear his gold shorts when he would come out. And that got taken away.
I love that. Yeah.
I just think they could get behind him a little bit more.
Well,
here's
what happens. Here's what's going to happen. If Moraes wins, Cejudo's still the UFC flyweight champion. And if this fight's a classic, it could be that's one reason to keep the flyweight division around. A, because you don't want to lose him as a champion, especially a guy that performed well, guy that beat the previous bantamweight champion at a flyweight. I get that. But it could be that's why the division lives a little bit longer. If Moraes were to win, if Henry Cejudo were to win, that could be the end of the flyweight division, and maybe Henry Cejudo really becomes that rock and roll star that everybody would like him to possibly become. Maybe even including
I don't know.
Dana White. But Dana White's now 20 years into this, and there's just not too many of those guys in the lighter weight classes that have become that. Unlike boxing, De La Hoya, 147. Money Mayweather ended at like 154, 147, but really
they started light.
At 130, 135 is where Mayweather. Yeah, exactly. Pacquiao, you know. So there's a lot of those lightweight classes, but that took 70 years of the history of boxing for that to come to light. And you know, with the four kings in the 80s, Duran, Leonard, Hearns, you know what I mean, Marvin Hagler, and those guys were like lightweight, welterweight, middleweight. I think even Hagler may have been a super middleweight at some point. So it all just takes time, and we all want it to happen quickly. But that's literally what can happen is Moraes may fight the winner of Aljamain Sterling and Pedro Munoz. In fact, Munoz is already saying, back in Brazil, baby. Mm-hmm. And Cejudo would be left to rule the flyweight division. I would think they would keep the flyweight division around if that's what happens. If Cejudo wins, then I don't know if the flyweight division stays, because now you'd have a guy that probably would want to just keep fighting at 135. Why go back to 25 at that point? Maybe a little bit more money and prestige. Who knows? Let's talk about the co-main event. I heard you guys talking during the break. Valentina and Jessica Ai. You feel like maybe it's not getting as much shine, or as much shine as the co-main event, or just in general for women's MMA, this being a title fight.
Josh, make your case. That was more you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it should be. I think it's a pretty compelling matchup, but yeah, I think a lot of the talk is on at least what I've been hearing is the main event, obviously, and you know, is Henry Cejudo cringeworthy, or do you enjoy the gimmick, or the Cerrone Ferguson fight is like the people's main event. Finally, Tony Ferguson back. Will Cowboy step up in the big spot? Yada yada. So it just seems like the co-main event is being a little bit overlooked. Not many people necessarily giving Jessica a chance, which I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the fight being overlooked. It's just the sense I get.
Right. So, two things. For one, you got a massive favorite here in minus 1,600, Valentina Shevchenko. I don't believe that should be that kind of a disparity. You know, I think Jessica Ai is a really solid fighter, and I think it's going to be a great fight. But Jessica Ai also had a run where if you look at the record, you're like, whoa. You know, what's she still doing? I think she had the 4 losses in a row. Turned it around, though, you know, and you know, we'll see. But neither one of these ladies, I guess, has really just hit household name status. You know what I mean? We've heard of Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, Chris Cyborg, Rose Namajunas, maybe a few others.
Well,
but Valentina Shevchenko is just getting there. You know what I mean? Like Jessica Andrade is the champion right now. Do you think a lot of people are going to be excited about her next title defense? Not really. You're going to have to remember the slam and remember a couple other highlights, a big punch over Karolina Kowalkiewicz. But here's the second point I was going to say. One was the odds. Two is this. I was just perusing through some websites. And let me tell you something that stands out here, guys.
Tell us.
Current champions in the UFC. Daniel Cormier, 1. John Jones, 1. Robert Whittaker, 0. Israel Adesanya, 0. Kamaru Usman, 0. Habib Nurmagomedov, 1. Dustin Poirier, 0. Max Holloway, 2. Bantamweight doesn't have a champion. It will on Saturday. Henry Cejudo, 1. Amanda Nunes, 0. And then Amanda Nunes, 3. Valentina Shevchenko, 0. Jessica Andrade, 0. What that number is after the champion is title defenses. They just haven't had their runs. Now, I know some of you are going to go, wait. John Jones won. No, I'm talking about current title defense run. John Jones has been a previous champion, but he became a champion again when he beat Gustafsson in December, and he defended it once against Anthony Smith. So there's not this current run for some of these guys. And Amanda Nunes stands out the most with the 3 that she has at bantamweight. And even she's not that popular. So I think what happens is there's just been a lot of turnover, and because of that, it makes MMA beautiful in that sense, because you have to tune in because you never know what can happen. But you don't have those long-standing champions that have just ruled for like 6 years or 5 years, like an Anderson Silva, like a GSP, you know, or maybe some of the other names back in the day. So Jose Aldo had a nice run as well.
You know how I turned this around, George? Right away, I love what Jessica Ai did. All right, the bulletproof vest was awesome, but I would say at the next ceremonial weigh-in, bring out an American flag. Make people want to cheer for you, right? Make it all the conflicts going on in the world right now, bring out that USA flag. D-Day, right? Today's the anniversary of that.
75-year anniversary of D-Day.
Spin it somehow. Mm-hmm. Josh is right. I didn't really realize it until he brought it up. But he's right. People's main event and the main event have been getting a lot. This is a good fight. It's a fun fight. Both girls have great personalities. Something more could be done.
I'll tell you what, too, man. The UFC's taken a hit in the ESPN era. 6 months now of unpacking all these cards. Look, I'm happy they're on ESPN. And it's not like I don't see them here in front of us at the Mandalay Bay Sportsbook all the time. We do. But those big, big fight cards that were available on DirecTV and Dish Network and everywhere else, and now they're behind the paywall, these last 3 months has been a little bit of a hit. So it'll take a while, maybe some people have even jumped off a little bit. Who knows? And look, other sports resurge, man. Remember the NBA kind of got a jolt in the 80s with Magic and Bird. Mm-hmm. Then Michael Jordan. But really, it seemed like you had a dozen really, really outstanding basketball players, and now it seems like every team has like 3 or 4 that are really, really good. It's just deeper, and it's exciting again. I think hockey also had a little bit of resurgence. I think the Vegas Golden Knights had a play in that as well last year.
You're welcome, people.
You know what I mean? The NFL doesn't stop growing. College football has a dominant player in Alabama. I think a lot of sports leagues profiles have grown, and so the UFC has to identify that. Plus, WWE, man. WWE's pretty massive as well. Boxing, everyone thought it was on a lifeline. They got some really, really great athletes out there.
They got helped out.
A couple upsets go their certain way, and here we are.
As bad as that was, because obviously we want to see the 2 best heavyweights in the world go at it in boxing.
For a reason.
Yeah, as bad as that situation was, it actually generated a lot of publicity for boxing.
I agree.
It was weird. At first I was like, oh my God, this is devastating to boxing. Then all you heard about was this incident. And then you were like, well, maybe it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I think these 4, Valentina, Shevchenko, Moraes,
you and Valentina?
and Cejudo, they're not popping yet.
I think they're popping. I just think the other ones are popping more. Valentina's got this
Again,
swag
we always
about
use
her.
this little audience that's in front of us here. There's probably about 30 people here in the sports book. And if you walk up to them and go, who do you got, Shevchenko or I? Not many of them are going to go, ooh, that's a tough one, man. I'm going with. They're not going to answer your question. And if you go, okay, maybe not that one, but what about Cejudo versus Moraes? Yee. All right, listen, man, if Cejudo wrestles, look at the group out there. They're just not going to tell you that. If you say Donald Cerrone, you got to say Donald Cowboy Cerrone and Tony Ferguson. Right. You might get a little love on that one. Cowboys fighting? You might get one of those. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But a lot of those names just aren't the household just yet. And it sucks because it's a great city. It's a great card, 21 ranked fighters, 2 title fights, but their names just haven't reached poppin' status. Doesn't mean they're no good. These are solid fighters. They entertain me, but I am a hardcore fan. So that is what makes Fight Week pop a little bit more, is when the casual fans join us hardcores and really, really elevate the spectacle of the event.
You know what used to be nice? The thing I liked about Fox was watching NFL and in the commercials seeing them promote a big fight.
Especially if an ex-pro player chimed in and said, oh, that's going to be a good one. You know what I mean?
Just hearing like Kurt Menefee, some of those names that you're familiar with, the Joe Buck, say those names and just...
I haven't been checking ESPN much, the shows, the talking head shows in the morning and the afternoon. Have they been promoting it? Have they been pushing it?
From what I've heard and seen, I have seen a few people do it, but they have this kind of arrogance to it. They don't seem to get behind it the way some of the guys at Fox did. The MMA guys, they're coming up. That's a crazy sport, huh? As where on Fox, they would say more like, the most devastating man in the world steps into the octagon. Like, even though you kind of go, Kurt Menefee, you don't know who the hell that is, in your head, you still appreciated the fact that they tried to sell it to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dan Le Batard, when he talks about it, it seems like almost like somebody's got a gun to his head and they're going, talk about it right now.
Is he still like that? I saw that he did that in show number 1 with Ariel
little
Helwani,
bit.
and that sucked. He shouldn't have done that, but I didn't like the way he acted then.
He's in too deep, I think, with this whole character. That I think
he had Dana White on the show. Dana White was holding up C and No, like about, I think this was before the show on the Sunrise, Florida show when the UFC was down there. So I maybe there was no bitter feelings or anything, but I was hoping he just had a bad day that time when he had Ariel on and they didn't sell the other show well. I think it may have been the one with that in Atlanta or something like that. Who do you like for the winner of Shevchenko and Jessica I?
That's funny because that's a weird division where really not very much makes sense after that.
Answer it when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156. We'll keep talking about some of these big fights and what's next for each fighter. You know, the fallout. Stay close.
Gorgeous George and goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
SiriusXM wants to send you and a guest to the 2019 MLB All-Star Game, and that's presented by MasterCard. One grand prize winner will receive a trip to Cleveland. That includes airfare and hotel, along with tickets to the SiriusXM All-Star Futures Game, T-Mobile Home Run Derby, and the 2019 All-Star Game. Official rules and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/MLB All-Star. Do that before June 20th. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. No additional purchase is necessary. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
You get the Futures Game, the Home Run Derby, and the All-Star Game. All right. You got till June 20th, folks. All right, Ghost. So what do you think? who would you like to see maybe face Valentina Shevchenko either or. One of them's going to win unless they have a classic and they have to run it back and do the instant rematch. But if that's not the case, what would you like to see for each lady?
I think if Jessica Ai wins, I think they run it back.
Okay.
I think if Valentina wins and it's a classic, maybe they can talk them into doing it again. But it's only because the names below them just aren't sexy, and it's more the division. You know, you got like a lot of 4-2s, 3-1s. There's just really not a lot of sexy names back there. So I don't know, Caitlin Chukagian, someone like that.
Well, she fights Calderwood, so just off the same card, the winner maybe.
But see, that's the thing is like they're the first fight of the night. Okay, so
I don't like that.
It's kind of hard to say like the winner of this fight that we really buried can face the champion. I don't know what their message they're trying to send. So really, like, there's not much that can happen.
Yeah. Well, but they got to have a winner, so I imagine the winner of that fight would just be the winner here. I think Valentina. I think the UFC needs to go back to Russia with her. I think that's where she can really pop. Or Peru. I mean, I don't know.
Combate Americas was there.
Combate Americas
last
was there,
week, right?
Yeah, they sure were.
What about I mean, did you see the reception that she got in Kyrgyzstan? That was dope.
Yeah, it sure was. All right, let's talk a little bit about Ferguson and Cerrone. We know that the winner should get the winner of Khabib versus Poirier. What about the guy that loses?
Gaethje. If Gaethje doesn't get matched up against Conor.
Would Gaethje want that?
You know, in his post to Conor McGregor, the only thing that didn't make sense to me was he kind of left an out. Like, I'd have to look at the phrasing again, but it was kind of like he didn't really say, like, I have to be one of the guys that's next. Like, he kind of just said, like, hey, it's a crazy division. It's got to play out, but you got to fight, right?
Right.
So I guess he's probably not going to say that he's all right with it, but I think he lets it happen. But I would say he would be one of the guys.
Do you want to see Cowboy back at 70, or you like him at 55?
I like him at 155.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I don't think he can't compete at 170. I just like him better at 155.
All right. We started the show off playing a little bit of some audio from Tony Ferguson. He's been doing some media out there, and we played a few different cuts, and you can catch any part of the show that you miss on demand. It's the SiriusXM On Demand app. Commercial free and in HD quality. You can catch not only our show, but any of the other shows on Fight Nation Channel 156. So I definitely say you should check it out. But on cut number 10, he talks about why Donald Cerrone was the fight to come back to.
Tired of sitting around, man. I used to fight 4 to 5, 6 times a year. As soon as I got out of the Ultimate Fighter, man, like I told you, I was whooping ass. When you lose, you get in the consolation brackets. When I got the win streak to say, yeah, you declared that, man. Like literally, you don't get such a big win streak unless you've actually lost. That's the truth. You can get the win streak and you can keep going, but in the UFC, like I say, once you get to the top, it's hard. It's really hard because you start running out of people, man. I've sent people to different divisions. They never wanted to come back. They're not sure of themselves. It's one of those things that I've understood and I understand. And when I write my note to myself and to my wife on the mirror after I take a shower, I always put be on point, be phenomenally incredible, or do something. And I put XTA and I put focus as many ways as I can, running off each other like a crossword puzzle. And I put the amount of consecutive fights, not consecutive, but I put my record up on there. And it's funny because I used to fight so often that I would remember the fight or how many I've had. But I've had so many fights already that it stopped being consistent. When it stopped being consistent, I stopped worrying about that number. The number started turning into letters, kind of like how Super Bowl happens. So it's just kind of like putting them up like that in a different way.
How hot are them showers? That's a lot you're writing on that mirror, right?
Yeah, now listen. He also could have fought earlier this year. He could have been in the position that Dustin Poirier is in. Remember, Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway fought for the UFC interim lightweight title. All that was happening when Khabib was serving out a suspension. Khabib had certain threats that he might even stay past the suspension and not, not fight anytime sooner. And sometimes the UFC sees that and they like to react. That's their way of sending a message, as if to say, look, you want to keep saying what you're saying, or thinking that you control, who runs this show. we're going to show you that there's a plan B, just in case you don't plan to come back or you become difficult. And so that's what they did. But Tony Ferguson was rumored to have been in, one of the two. And he turned it down. And, a lot of people criticized him, including myself, because I thought that would have, if anything, solidified him. Right now, he's in a position where if he beats Cowboy, he should be next. But what do we always say? You never know with Conor McGregor, right? Or what if it's a classic and they got to run him back? There's those two outs right away. Well, guess what? If he had fought Max Holloway or Dustin Poirier and won, he'd be the one that would be headlining versus Khabib in Abu Dhabi right now. Now, dude, did we know that back then? No, I don't even think we knew the UFC was going to Abu Dhabi. But I think we all had a feeling that was a little bit more of an assurance than where things stand right now.
I feel like it's safe this time. I really feel like it's safe.
And the winner of this fight fights the winner of Dustin. And
If Tony Ferguson wins, he gets the next shot. I really don't think, even if it's a barn burner, it's a classic, I don't think they'll run it back just because that division's so deep. I'm not saying they're going to tell Dustin, go all the way back to the bottom of the line. They'll probably give him a good fight. But I don't think they give him a rematch right away.
What if Dustin wins?
That's what I'm saying. If Tony Ferguson wins, I think he will get that next shot. And then the whole Conor thing, I don't see them doing it. I really don't.
No, but what if Dustin wins? You don't think Khabib gets an immediate rematch?
No.
Okay.
Because then I think maybe you could spin the Conor thing.
Okay.
You already beat him once. That whole thing.
But right? what if it turns out Khabib's a beast at pay-per-views, even on his own without Conor? Not Conor-esque, but still, whoa, like, wow, we're selling here. Him and Poirier somehow sells. Do you think they might go like, ooh, that fight was pretty good. We need to run, but we need to have Khabib get that.
Only if Conor plays hardball.
Okay. All right. But anyway, he addresses why he wasn't a part of that here in cut number 13. Again, this is Tony Ferguson, UFC lightweight.
I was coached. I'm going to tell you, I was coached to say no.
By whom?
By my management.
How come?
You ask them. That's a question for them. Like I said, this isn't 30 for 30. We don't go backwards on this. We move forward. So I wanted that fight. But, I mean, literally, you think it would have made sense to be a two-time interim champion? Yeah, come on now. Dog already had that trophy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm not here to collect trophies. I'm here to cash checks and choke some necks.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same blades and shades all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. My favorite part of the day, my favorite day of the week is Sunday, man. It's right after fight day. You get to be back with your family, be back with your crew, be back to normal living. I don't think anybody understands the amount of stuff that we go through in this. And the path that I've taken, like I said, I had to jump off that path as soon as I started seeing people skip the line. Like this. I'm out. You guys want me? You got to pay for it now. That's why I hired a new agency. They're starting to take care of me. Everything, when it's always fresh, right? Everything's nice. But it's about consistency. It's the same way when I healed my knee. I said, what? Consistency times effort is what? Confidence. And here I am growing, buddy.
Are they watching a scary movie in the background, by the way? There's this whole bass thing going on, right?
Maybe, yeah.
What were those movies that had to do with the
Scream?
No.
Paranormal
Activity. Sounds like the scene's coming up, right? The bad guys.
I do. It's Brett, right? That's interviewing him. Brett Okamoto.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid to ask him anything. Can you imagine taking a Starbucks order? You want whipped cream on it? What is this? 30 for 30? Damn, man, you can't follow up with nothing.
Except Tony, once again, can get you fired up for a fight, and he's a great fighter. There's a lot of great things we can say about the dude, all right? But there are times where he just doesn't make. He'll say something that doesn't make sense. Okay, yeah, I get that. I got that trophy already. I got that little pin of being an interim champ. What's the point of doing it again? The point is you're guaranteed, I say that in air quotes because it doesn't always guarantee it, but should you stay healthy, you're pretty much guaranteed to fight against the undisputed. And one other thing, you're a champion. You get pay-per-view cuts. And what did he say? I'm here to break necks. And what was the other thing? Cash checks. All right? So if he's there to cash a check, guess what? The check's bigger if you're getting some of those pay-per-view points. Regardless if it's the ESPN era and they're not selling as well or not, you still get that additional check. Plus, if you want to be technical about it, you get to wear the all black and you get another $10,000 for Reebok.
True.
It's not hundreds of thousands, it's not a million, but it's yet another check. So that part I would say I just disagree with because, again, he can fight Cowboy, but nobody's really the only thing people are proclaiming it is the people's main event. That's cute. All right, I get it. A lot of people want to see that one more than anything. But no one's really proclaimed it as a solid number one because the UFC just doesn't really do that as often. So that's where I would just, again, wholeheartedly disagree. But that's just it right there. Listen, all right. We have a few more cuts, but right now we're going to move on to some other stuff. Kimbo Slice, today marks the 33-year anniversary from his passing, and he was pretty big in the sport, you know. We also noted that today is 75th anniversary of D-Day, and I saw a lot of that remembrance on television today. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about Kimbo and his impact when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 156.
If Ken doesn't get this, will he have any arm strength left? And Kimbo's out. Tries back to his feet and unloading with the right hand. It was all Ken Shamrock, now all Kimbo's slice. Drop Shamrock and the confirmation.
Definitely solidified his star power, man. That's what he was. He was a star. Even though Dana White resisted him at first, guess what? He was actually on the season that had the most viewers by far, and all the guys liked him. Then, of course, he finished with Bellator, but at the age of 42, he died, and that was exactly 3 years ago, June 6th of 2016.
But you know what was interesting about him was the fact that when he came over, even though his background was what it was, wow, I can't believe I said that. He took it serious. At no point did you ever feel like he was coming in for a laugh or a cheap thrill.
Right.
He really tried to be a mixed martial artist, and like even if you go on the season of The Ultimate Fighter and you hear him talk to other people, he talked to everybody with respect. Anybody that knows him that came out here and trained in Vegas, he was always nice to everyone. Yeah, there were times where maybe he didn't want to train with certain people. He was off to the side, but he took everything very serious. And we had his son here, Kevin, like about a year ago, George?
Mm-hmm.
And, man, that kid's got a good head on his shoulder, too.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about the eyes that he brought. Almost kind of like what Brock Lesnar did in bringing pro wrestling.
Right.
He brought a lot of casual fans, too. A lot of people tuned in just to see Kimbo and see
No
how
doubt.
he would do.
No doubt. He blew up The Ultimate Fighter. And
That
he
was a
huge
crazy era.
For Elite XC, CBS, everything, man. He lost some key fights that could have made him even bigger. A couple of the fights that he lost set him back a little bit because people were just looking to pounce on him and say he wasn't the real deal. There was a lot of other MMA fighters that kind of hated on him. And honestly, when Seth Petrozelli beat him, it was just a straight jab that knocked him down. And of course, a lot of people were like, you see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? No disrespect to Seth Petrozelli, but it was just the punch. It would all look so awkward, and you could see the whole brass cage side just like, no, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. That was a weird night. When you go back to everything, maybe that could be maybe not a 30 for 30, but maybe like a 15 for 15.
Yeah.
But that night played out very strangely.
In his final fight, he fought Dada 5000, another street fighter now promoting fights, backyard brawls or whatever. And this was February 19th of 2016, so a few months before he eventually passed away. He won via TKO, but it was overturned because he tested positive for nandrolone, and he had an elevated testosterone ratio. So things just ended a little bit on a sour note there for Kimbo. He was 42 years of age, and look, man, he just started in the sport late, so probably was looking for a little bit of an edge. There was no USADA there, and of course we know that Bellator, they're usually, whatever the commission puts out there for tests, the fighters have a pretty easy time of dodging around it because when it's coming. There's nothing random about it. But he did get caught, and it didn't matter, honestly. By then, I think he had already just become a YouTube sensation, a star on The Ultimate Fighter. And a lot of people, and he gained a lot of people's respect because, like Ghost said, he put his time in the gyms and he trained, and he had a loving family. He was even a grandfather by the time he passed away.
He also proved other points, though, and those points are that you can't just be big and tough and come into the sport and be successful. He had some success, but when it really came down to it, the experience of being a mixed martial artist overtook him at times. Mm-hmm. And I think you prove points to the casual viewer that goes, oh, man, I've seen him. He's wrecking people on YouTube. Watch what he does here. And then they realize, well, wait a minute. That guy's half Kimbo's size. How was he able to knock him out? He also proved points in that regard as well.
Would he be a star as a 45-year-old in bare knuckle right now?
Yes, absolutely. He'd be perfect for bare knuckle.
Man, can you imagine?
Wow.
If he was still around?
That would be cool.
I'm telling you, man, this guy was just edgy. He was a bouncer, worked in a strip club, and then he was a bouncer, and you could see him on part of the Reality Kings, adult, the adult-based production promotion company.
What's that?
It's right there on your screen.
Oh.
But he was just an edgy dude, man. But we had him on the show, and he was cool and respectful. But I know a lot of the guys at American Top Team were really broken up about him because he was just a dude, man, and he was just a dude that helped bring eyes to the sport.
How about some of the people from the backyard fights that eventually did mixed martial arts? Jorge Masvidal.
Yes.
Alex Coceres.
Yes.
Even Dada went in there for a little bit.
Dada 5,000. Yeah. Well, maybe
there's one more, right?
Maybe those YouTube sensations, those guys alone, were already kind of giving us an appetizer 15 years ago for what bare knuckle could be, right? And that's why why are we all acting like bare knuckle? Wow, these guys going to be around? Or what? I mean, hey, people appreciated it 15 years ago. People appreciated it 100 years ago, and I'm sure there's been bare knuckle even before that. But what I'm getting at is it's pretty raw, and maybe that should be the reinforcement for why it'll probably do well now that it's here. And in sanctioned states, and fighters are, from boxing and MMA are starting to migrate over. Yeah.
Did you watch Dogfight? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch that. If you guys are going Kimbo Slice, I've kind of heard the name, but I don't really know much. Go back and watch that documentary. I don't know if it's on. I think I watched it on Netflix. I don't know if it's there anymore. But it was pretty good. It was well done. It was more like from Dada's point of view, but Kimbo makes appearances in it, I believe, as well. And you can kind of see what George and I are talking about, the genesis of all this and how it came about.
Yep. All right. We are going to take our last break, and when we come back, we're going to do our daily debate. It's going to be tied in with some great popular names in the sport of mixed martial arts and when we can maybe see their return.
Can't agree on anything.
Everybody knows it's duck season.
Rabbit season.
Duck season.
Rabbit season.
Whether it's food,
Less filling.
Tastes great.
Less filling.
Tastes great.
gambling,
Always bet on black.
I like red.
Black.
Red.
Black.
Red.
Black, dummy.
or even social media,
Instagram.
Snapchat.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
the same applies to the biggest stories in MMA. Time for MMA Junkie Radio's Daily Debate.
Today's hashtag daily debate question for at MMA Junkie Radio. Of Nick Diaz, Conor McGregor, and George St. Pierre, who do you think returns to MMA first? Diaz, McGregor, or GSP? Think about it, goes. This might be a trick question. You never know.
I can see how you can think it was a trick question because early on, first of all, Nick Diaz, nah, that ain't happening. All right. GSP I thought about for a little bit, and it was going to be my answer. And then I thought, no, it's got to be Conor McGregor.
He's tied into Khabib's contract.
He's tied into
new
it.
Contract he signed.
I agree. But here's the thing. Conor McGregor, I believe, will make his return to combat sports. But the question says MMA. And that's what was keeping me more on the George St. Pierre side.
Right.
Because there's so much going on in that lightweight division. I'm going to stick to Conor McGregor. But really, it's tied into the outcomes of this weekend. Or, sorry, not this weekend. Of the main event of Dustin Poirier and Khabib Nurmagomedov and Donald Cerrone and Tony Ferguson. The way all that plays out will tell us when exactly Conor McGregor can come back.
So you think McGregor comes back to either the winner of this weekend's fight or the one in Abu Dhabi?
Yes. Whereas
I say I can buy your answer if he fights the Ferguson Cerrone winner. But that Poirier-Khabib winner, I don't know. Khabib looks like he might be focused on GSP should he get past Poirier.
You think the only way he comes back is if he's fighting Khabib? GSP? I don't think he'll come back for anyone else. It wouldn't make sense. The only way he'll do it is that.
Unless you do. Or the 165-pound division debuts.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to go with GSP, man, because I think Conor,
You're
enough
lying.
already. McGregor has teased. I think when Aldo was beating Stevens and Moicano, hey, congrats, I'd love to do it again in Brazil. Then there was Anderson Silva when he won.
You don't think he's checked out?
He recently won a fight. Oh, no, I'm sorry. When he lost to Izzy, he was saying, hey, I still want to fight on the Brazil card. And then Conor McGregor said, yeah, you versus older brother, I get the younger brother. Nate Diaz in Brazil. Okay, we heard that. Gaethje, you won. Hey, man, I'd love to mix it up with you. Pettis, you won. I'd love to. Cerrone. But he doesn't come back, which shows me he's just staying there in the limelight, putting his name out, showing some respect to some of the other fighters, still teasing Floyd Mayweather, but eventually he wants to come back to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and now Khabib is trying to make him a plan B.
But the only thing that's making you say that is things that Khabib are saying. GSP is checked out. He says, I'm gone. I'm on a yacht.
Well, they were going to fight at one point. They wanted to fight at one point, but I think
since then he's retired.
Dana White wasn't warm to it.
At least in this case, Conor may be saying crazy things, but he's still saying, I want to fight.
He's also saying, I want to fight Mayweather.
I'm scared about that because we're dumb enough to buy it. Well, maybe I'm dumb enough.
All right. Well, let's see how this weekend plays out.
Right.
Let's see how this weekend plays out. I think there's some possibilities out there, and that's the beauty, I guess, of being Conor McGregor is a lot of people want to fight him, and it would be a big fight anywhere. It seems like boxing's the biggest one, but I don't know if Dana White lets him do that.
I was surprised Nick Diaz.
Most people agreed with you. 65% said Conor McGregor. 27% said Nick Diaz. 8% said GSP. Still a lot of Diaz hopefuls out there. Look, the younger brother's coming back. Maybe that'll sway the older brother to come back. 1,300 plus votes came in. Thank you, Junkie Nation, the readers of the site, and the listeners of the show for participating. Let's finish up with a call here. We got Joe from H-Town. What's up, Joe?
Good morning, fellas. All I heard was
good morning. How you doing?
How y'all doing?
What'd you have for breakfast?
Good, man. Good, man. I had some Cheerios, man.
Nice.
Regular or Honey Nut?
Man, I didn't have Cheerios. I don't eat breakfast, man. Hey, man, you guys were talking about Kimbo earlier, and I was just going to talk about my night being there for his last fight, man. I got to tell you, it was one of the most embarrassing nights of MMA, in my opinion. That fight was just terrible, and I was all hyped to see Kimbo, man. You know, I've been a fan of his since, he debuted at Tough, and I was just so excited to see him smash this other guy. And it was just so disappointing. I had to walk out, man. I was like sitting eight rows back, and I had to walk out, man.
You walked out during the fight?
But yeah.
Wow.
Those guys were huffing and puffing, man. One of them almost died.
That was bad.
Yeah, it was not a beautiful MMA fight. I think the only reason you stuck around at that point was because you knew, well, someone's got to eat crow, someone's got to stick their foot in their mouth. But I guess there was so much concern over the well-being of both guys that we all forgot, like, one guy lost and one guy won. It didn't end well, for sure. I would concur with that. But, you know, homeboy made his mark in the sport. Hey, he'd be a good bare-knuckle guy, though, wouldn't he?
Oh, for sure. You know, I don't know if you guys know, I'm a big, you know, meet and greet guy. I like to meet the guys, and that for that fight, Kimbo had like a training session at Adrian Peterson's gym, and you know, I was staking out the place, trying to get a picture, get an autograph, and he's coming out, and he gets mobbed like crazy, man. There's about 30 people there, and he gets mobbed like crazy. And then I see Marissa. I was like, oh, that's Marissa. Like, what's she doing here? Like, okay, let me go say hi real quick, and then I'm gonna get Kimbo. So I say hi to Marissa. You know, I didn't know you were in town. Let's meet up later, blah, blah, blah. I go back, Kimbo's gone. And I was just so down. I was so depressed. I was so mad at Marissa for the longest time. I told her this story last year. And that's my Kimbo story, man. Never met him, never got to take a picture. And, you know, rest in peace to Kimbo Slice, man.
All right, good call, Joe. Thank you very much.
Picture.
What's that?
He would have been a unique picture.
He would have been. Yeah, we never had him in studio. We just had him via the phone. Yeah. Saw him a few times at Extreme Couture, and I'll tell you what, man. He just had this look, and I wouldn't say like a starstruck moment, but I had that like, I mean, I'm around these fighters a lot, but I don't know, on that particular day I said, whoa, that's Kimbo. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I didn't get out and do a picture or anything like that, but I just remember going, whoa, that's Kimbo.
Did you size him up?
Hell no.
No, not like you want to fight him, but I mean, like, did he seem a lot bigger than he thought he would? Or to me, he seemed bigger than I thought he would. He had a good presence.
He had a good presence to him. He was just well put together, and he had a gym bag, and he was leaving Extreme Couture. So, yeah, like, he just had that look. You know what I mean? And he did cool stuff on YouTube that I watched over and over and got a kick out of, and I looked forward to the next time they loaded a fight. Those fights, when they happened, and you got to see him a year later. They hadn't just happened. They wanted to escape some legalities or whatever, because I guess there was some payment involved, some of the fighters, and so they had to kind of, like, you know, tap dance around that a little bit. But like I say, he had a presence, man. You know, and then that big fight, I remember. I've been part of the underground for years. Yeah, mixedmartialarts.com. And, of course, it was this big anticipation when him and Sean Gannon, the Boston police officer,
that's right,
fought. If you go back to the old threads there on mixedmartialarts.com, you can see Kenny Florian getting all geeked out. He had a green name, you know, talking about when it might go down and when it's supposed to happen and what time, and I'll sneak in some updates. That was like a big deal, like, on the streets, we'll say.
God, I forgot things were like that.
And those guys fought. They fought, and they did well, and Gannon won. So, I mean, technically on the streets, Kimbo can never say he was undefeated because it's there on video, but it was a big deal. Gannon did get a shot to fight in mixed martial arts, and I think they may have even cost him his job for a while. And, yeah, those were primitive days of mixed martial arts.
A little bit.
And the UFC. And
I remember being on MySpace when
some of that stuff
Frank
was a big
Trigg
deal.
fought Jason Mayhem Miller, that you were cornering for that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just put something like, hey, George was going to give me some updates or whatever. Dude, there were like 500 people in that chat. And before I knew it, I had to feed the play-by-play. And you were kind of giving it to me sporadically. Mm-hmm. People were going like, what's going on here? I mean, those are some weird days.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about all that.
Goes, by the way, combined no-hitters. You want to see some of the names that were involved?
Fine.
Babe Ruth. Vida Blue was a big name. I don't know if you remember him. Raleigh Fingers.
Yeah.
Mike Witt. Remember him from the Angels?
Okay.
And Mike Flanagan, also Baltimore Orioles, for a long time. Alejandro Pena. So I don't know, man. A few of these guys would have a bone to pick with you.
They didn't do it by themselves, though. Come on.
All right, Cole Hamels.
How can you compare that to a dude that stood on the mound for 9 innings?
John Orlando knows Cole Hamels. Thank you to Burt Watson for his time. Tomorrow, Francis Ngannou will stop by. He will be in studio. We are out of here. For Josh and Goes, I'm George. Have a nice day. Hey, check out MMAJunkie.com. We got great coverage. Go out there and be a champion.